as sort of a starting point, what I would say is the reason that we put a number of vaccine mandates, or a number of employers chose to do that in their workplaces, was the prevailing consideration of workplace safety, is that you have an obligation as employers to keep your workplace safe. For example, are you dealing with a vulnerable population? Are you in a healthcare setting? Do you perhaps have work with young children that are not able to be vaccinated at this time? So things like that would go into your analysis for your own workplace. Other considerations would be, I think, sort of looking at the bigger pictures. What other tools are there out there to keep our workplace safe? You know, what you're really asking then is there still a risk presented by COVID that you need to protect against? Is it reasonable to have the vaccine policy in place given the current sort of COVID climate? You know, there's no harm in taking it slow and maybe, you know, letting things play out for a little bit longer, seeing how we're doing COVID-wise, and you know, assessing sort of on a staged basis how long you need to keep that vax policy in place.
So you're going to want to have in place a return to work plan. You know, certainly, so you're dealing with a couple of considerations. You know, one is extent to which, you know, some employees that are vaccinated may not feel comfortable with unvaccinated workers or being close proximity to unvaccinated workers. So that's something that employers, you know, need to be alive to. There might be some employees that you know, prefer to wear masks, and so that's sort of something that can be you know, certainly addressed. So I think employers want to, you know, need to turn their mind to essentially, you know, what measures they're going to continue. It certainly is prudent to continue to emphasize the, you know, preventative health measures, re-emphasize social distancing as you know, sort of another you know, measure as well. You know, certainly, you know, a lot of employers have adopted kind of a phased return to work, you know, whereby you don't bring everybody back to work 5 days a week immediately, and you know, you stagger it, and you allow time for people to get used to, you know, to working together. I mean,
it's important, of course, to distinguish between a request for accommodation that's based on a protected ground under human rights legislation and a request to work from home because that's a preference. I think you would treat these accommodation requests in the same manner you would any accommodation request. If it's based on a medical ground, you would want to have the employee provide medical documentation in support of the request, and you want to, you know, have some comfort as the employer that this is a bona fide medical request, and there is a reason to work from home, and then you can, you know, entertain the request accordingly. Really, the worldwide workplace has changed now, and I think you know, employees are used to having some flexibility to work at home. So I think from a purely practical perspective, employers will want to be able to consider remote work arrangements or provide more flexibility to employees than we maybe have in the past.